You're listening to the WBT Podcast with Michael Lodge. Listen to all of our podcasts at www.wbtpod.com. Stay informed. Let's get started.
And welcome to the WBT. This is Mike Lodge, and I'm glad you've joined me on this Friday. Fridays are a day for me where I shut my office and I get to do whatever I want to do. However, I'm behind schedule, so I'm in my office. Listen, our conversation is going to be about political spin, how it affects our economy, how it affects our jobs, our businesses. I'll be right back right after this.
This is brought to you by Lodge & Co., a business and tax advisory firm where your success is our goal. Call us today toll-free at 888-681-1518 or visit us at www.lodge-co.com and learn more about what we can do for you. Lodge & Co., your source for sound business and tax services.
I tell you, one of the things that I hate more in politics is the spin that politicians do. So you see Bernie, who did not have a very good Super Tuesday. He lost a lot of states that he should have picked up because we have been told and we have been spun of how popular he is, especially with the young people. The problem is he didn't get that many states. Biden got the majority of it. So Bernie is out there spinning and spinning and spinning of how it's such a corrupt politics, how the Democrats have cheated him once again. But the problem is that it's not the Democrats. The problem is it's the American belief that socialism does not work. It's a failure. We see it failing with so many different countries. So what does he do? He knows he's losing. He knows that his message of free stuff just is not working on the American people. So he begins to spin and he begins to point fingers. And quite frankly, he begins to lie. And it's that lying part, that dirty, rotten, corrupt political lies that he is promoting now. What I think I would do if I was him is I would work harder. Now when you see him walking through crowds or going to one of his speeches, his crowds are becoming lower in participation. If you watch people on social media, they're not really supporting they're not supporting Bernie anymore. What they're doing is that they're following the spin of what Bernie is telling them, that it's a corrupt political system. And the fact is, it has nothing to do with the Democrats' political system. It has to do with Democrat Americans saying, we do not want a socialist. It's plain and simple. That is the message that the American people have sent to Bernie and to the Democrats also. We don't want a socialist to become our president. As we look at all of these countries who are socialist countries, they have failed miserably, and the people who have to live within these systems are suffering. The elites of the socialist system, they do very good. It's so amazing to me that that's exactly what we see with Bernie. We see him living a very good lifestyle, making over $1 million a year. having 3 houses, traveling in private planes and private jets. That is elite. And then you see this college student who's trying to pay his debt, and he has fallen for an individual who says, listen, I can change it all for you. I can forgive your educational debt. But he can't, because that has to be done by an act of Congress, not by a president. So the American people, I think, as I talk to them every single day, and listen, I will talk to anybody. If I'm at a restaurant, I will start talking to the people in the next table to me, and we will have a really good conversation. Usually it's not about politics. Very little about politics. Usually it's about just the everyday lifestyle and what's happening in their lives and the stories that they tell me about the community. You know, with this virus issue, and people are so afraid to travel. Well, you don't have to travel abroad. Do you know that we have a country with 50 states in it? Every state is different from the next one. Each one has a different story. Everyone has a different scene that you see. How many of you have been up to the state of Washington, seen Mount Rainier? Or how many of you have been to the Grand Canyon? How many of you have been up to Sedona, Arizona? How many of you have been to Florida and gone down to the Everglades and seen the alligators? How many of you have even tasted what an alligator tastes like? It tastes like chicken. I'm telling you. But this country has so much to see. Every single state. Wyoming, Minnesota, the beautiful lakes. There is so much to see in this nation. What you should do, get out your United States map and start checking off the states that you have been to. I tell you, I learned this very, very dear to my heart because I have driven across America from my house in South Carolina to my office in California several times. I think I've done it 8 times now. I have driven across the United States by myself with no one. And every time I do it, I see something new, something that I have to stop and see. America is a huge place. I mean, people come from other countries just to see what America is all about. We as Americans, we haven't even seen probably even the majority of the state that you live in right now. That is where we do so badly as Americans, because we don't know our country and we don't know the history. Every single state has a different history. Something happened in every single state, and you've got 50 of them to explore. I would say, before you begin traveling Europe again, or Asia, or wherever you want to travel internationally, you better start traveling the United States, because there's so much to see. Rent a mobile home and see 3 states in one weekend or 1 week. Get a motorhome and start traveling. You don't need to buy one, you can just rent one. Or get in your car and just go for a road trip. I love road trips. I have been from the southern border all the way up to the northern border of California. And let me tell you, every single curve of the road, there's a different aspect of California that I had not seen before. So with this virus, consider it an American vacation. That's all you have to do. Just go on an American vacation and you will be thrilled to see what your country is all about. But let's get back to Bernie. I kind of digress there. So Bernie has a message that the American people did not want to hear. They saw how Obamacare just failed miserably. Yes, we got more people insured, but not enough insured. Because they were not able to go to the doctors that they wanted to go to. They could not go to the hospitals. Some hospitals were off the system. I mean, it was a mess. And the payment plans were slow. It was a mess of what Obamacare did. And I blame that primarily on on Nancy Pelosi because she pushed this thing through so fast. And her comment was, well, we've got to pass it so we know what's inside it. And that is a dumb response. You're not going to buy a car and then drive it. You're just not going to do that. You're going to get in that car and you're going to road test it and you're going to see what things you like and what you don't like about it. But the majority of Congress did not even read that 1,000+ page bill. And that's where we get into the problem. So now we have Bernie Sanders, who is trying to do Medicare for all, and you're going to lose your really dynamic Cadillac-style insurance that you currently have. You'll lose it. It's gone. Bye-bye. Hasta la vista. Socialism, hasta la vista. So Bernie Sanders' message to the American people of free stuff just did not carry weight because as Americans we know that free stuff is going to cost us dearly. Our taxes are going to go up and the quality of care to go down. That's how socialism medical systems work. So the message, the content of socialism, state-run or government-run hospitals, free stuff, just was not the message that Americans wanted to hear because that is not what America's all about. So then you had Elizabeth Warren, who was trying to sound like Bernie, but pretend that she's not Bernie in the way that he believes, but was copying every single program and enhancing it even more. Her numbers just did not add up. Bernie Sanders' numbers just does not add up. When you have a presidential candidate say to you on national television, I don't know how much it's going to cost. Well, I'm sorry. I'm not going to buy anything if I don't know what it's going to cost me. So the content and the message of Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren just is not there. Now you have Joe Biden, who is trying to copy and run off the tail of Obama. The problem is that you're not really quite sure what his healthcare program is. I mean, he's already told in various town halls, yeah, I'm going to raise your taxes. So we already know that that's his goal, is to raise taxes on Americans. Bernie Sanders is probably not going to make it, but we might be surprised when it comes to the next election group of states. But the way it stands now, it sounds to me that Americans have said, no, we do not want a socialist. We do not want a socialist-style government, and we don't want to give away free stuff that you have to pay for. That's just the American way. If we go into debt, we have to pay for our own debt. I had to do it. Parents had to do it. Everybody has had to do it. If they signed on the dotted line of a loan program, they're responsible for that. It's not one of those things that becomes free all of a sudden. So we're beginning to see this spin, and it's going round and round and round, and he's standing up there saying, well, I might not win. When you as a candidate are saying, I might not win, there's a problem with your candidacy. And maybe, just maybe, it's time that you step down. Now the Democrats have a really big problem because now they've got Joe Biden. And I know that a lot of them are looking the other way when he makes his gaffes, when he says the wrong thing. They think it's cute. The problem is that the message that he is sending to the rest of the United States is, this guy may have some problems. This guy may be just a little too old to be running. What is his psychological condition? What is his mental condition right now at 77 years old? Because he makes them every single speech almost. There's another gaffe that comes out of his mouth. And sometimes he makes things up of where he's been and what he's done and what he's created. So he's already set himself up to be attacked from every which way. And the Americans are going to start sitting there listening to him even closer now. Because now he's almost close to the White House. So his words count. His actions count. His history, his background, his time that he served in the Senate, the time he served as vice president over Obama, he is practically almost setting himself up for impeachment. And I'm sure that's going through the Republicans' minds at the moment. This guy is ripe for impeachment because of the actions of his son and his actions in Ukraine. So he is a good candidate, if ever, for impeachment, because that is quid pro quo. Literally. But we're going to be hearing a lot of spin, people. Take that spin and put it to the side and look at the facts. Look at the history. Look at the accomplishments that these individuals have done. And you have to ask yourself, that should be the number one question you ask yourself. What has this candidate done? You have to ask that to both parties, the Republican and the Democrats. What has these individuals done to make America better? What special interest groups are they focused on? Are they focused on the American people, or are they focused on XYZ corporation or organization, whatever it may be? So these are the questions that we as voters, we have to ask ourselves when we're trying to decide a president. What are the accomplishments have these individuals done? What have they done? That's the whole question. And whatever they've done, was it for the American people, or was it for their own gain? Was it for the American people, or was it for them to keep power? What was the motivation for that accomplishment? We have to answer those questions every single day of these individuals, because they are the people we are hiring. You and I are hiring. This is their interview time. And whether or not if they've made the country or the world or their environment or their family or whoever a better place, or have they failed the country miserably and have done absolutely nothing for the nation, and they pocketed everything for their own personal gain? That's the questions that we have to ask. America's a great country. I love this country. I mean, my gosh, I've been across it so many times. I've talked to so many different Americans. Even with this podcast, I talk to so many different people around the world. And what their views are of how they're looking in at us during this political time. And surprisingly, they still want to come here. They still want to come to this nation because they see democracy in action. So yes, sometimes it might be dirty, but politics is dirty. But they see America in action. They see people getting ahead. They see people creating companies. They see people getting investors. They see people creating families. They see people buying homes. They see the good things about this country. And even though it's a dirty political system or season that we're in at the moment, they still want to come to this great country. Can you blame them? No, can't blame them whatsoever. But they have to come here legally. Those who try to cheat this system and come over the the borders illegally, they're doing damage to the individuals who want to come here legally. I heard an individual the other day say, "Stop telling us to come here legally. It's too hard of work. It takes 7 years." Now, let me tell you something. Sometimes when you build a company, it takes 7 years for it to finally get off the ground. Sometimes that's what happens with companies. To be able to buy that home that you want to buy, sometimes it takes 7 years for you to save up that money. To get to get anywhere in life, it takes work. But you don't sneak across the border. That doesn't cut it anymore. American people have seen it too many times, and they're saying we don't want open borders. That's part of the problem of the Democrats at the moment, is they do not want borders that are protected. And they want to protect the illegal aliens who are sitting in their cities committing crimes. They want to protect them. They do not want to enforce the law. So now, since the laws are not being enforced, you have homelessness, you've got drug use, you've got people pooping on the streets, you've got all this nonsense. Gosh, if you really want to know what socialism looks like in the United States, look at San Francisco, look at Los Angeles, look at the whole state of California. So we have a nation right now trying to decide who the president should be. And we have to put to the side the spin that's going around and around. Dig in on the candidate. Do a little study, do a little research, and then weigh the options. That's how we choose a president, and that's how I choose a president. I look at the accomplishments of what that individual has done for this nation. That's how I choose a president. That's how I choose employees. What value are you going to add to my company? What value? What is your experience level? What have you done? That's who I'm going to hire if they add value to my company. So I'm going to add value to my nation based upon the presidential candidate who has accomplished things for the nation. It's an amazing time. I love politics. And then I hate politics at the same time. I hate to see when people are fighting in families and they literally tell their family member, this is so stupid, people. They literally tell their family members, if you don't believe how I believe, then I don't know you anymore. You are no longer a member of my family. That right there is socialism, because they are trying to tell you how to think. In a democracy, everybody gets a chance and a choice of who they want to be their president or their member of Congress or their party or whatever it may be. That's what democracy is all about, is that we protect our voice in our decision-making process. No one tells me how to vote. That's just not how it's done. There's a church out there, especially in the Philippines. There's a church that is called Iglesia de Cristo. I can't remember what it's called. It's one of these big churches. And they have a lot of political power. And you want to know why they have political power? Because they tell their church members who to vote for. And you don't have a choice. You have to do what they do, what they say. That's not a democracy. In America, we get to choose whoever we want. No matter what anybody thinks of our decision, we get that choice, and that's democracy. We get the ability to choose the president we want. No one tells us what to do. So the basis of what's happening in the Bernie camp is that he knows he's losing. His message is not there. So he's blaming other people. Blaming racism, he's blaming sexism, he's blaming corruptness in the Democratic political party. But that's just a spin. That's just an excuse. And I think you have to ask yourself, do you really want an individual who is going to spin something every single time because no one agreed with him? Sometimes you got to stand up and be a man and say, you know what, I guess my message just is not strong enough. Do I tweak my message? Or do I change my philosophy? You have to remember that Bernie Sanders has never been a Democrat. He has had an I for independent next to his name, and in all those years as an independent, he has pushed, he has shoved, he has written about, he has talked about the socialist way of life. That has been his whole message his entire time as a mayor, his entire time in the Congress, and his entire time in the Senate. That has been his message time and time again, and every single time it never gets anywhere. Because the American people see the failure of a socialist system. And it scares them, and they hate it more than anything else in the world. Now, to the young people, because they've never lived or been through situations where that affected them by socialism or through socialism, when all that they hear at the moment is free stuff and that the world needs to change. Well, let me tell you, the world needs to change every single day, but socialism never makes that change. And that is the fact. Okay, everybody, if you have any questions, send me a email. Not email, but send me a text at 818-252-5682. It's 818-252-5682. And I will answer it, I promise you. This is Mike Lodge. I'll talk with you soon. Everybody have a great Friday. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the WBT with Michael Lodge. Join us again tomorrow as we explore more about business and taxes. Follow us on iHeartRadio and go to our podcast website at www.wbtpod.com and listen to all of our podcasts and read our blogs.
This podcast has been produced by Michael Lodge, fully focused on content.